Have you ever struggled with perfectionism? Well, chances are, if you clicked on this video, you probably have, and you might even be stuck in it right now. Hello and welcome. I'm Makayla, and this is To Be Known, a podcast all about authenticity, vulnerability, and connection. There's a difference between perfectionism and being a high achiever, where being a high achiever, it is celebrated in our society. Whereas when you catch yourself being a perfectionist, like me, I'm just saying, there's a lot of shame attached to perfectionism. It is this all or nothing mentality that either you have to be the best or you are the worst. I am going to talk to you all about perfectionism and sort of challenge these ideas, these thinkings, these ways that we might be coping with our demons inside by trying to achieve great things, achieve great heights. And there is a big difference between being a high achiever and being a perfectionist. Sometimes we could think that the grass is greener on the other side if we just be the best person that we can be. But there's a lot of shame that goes into perfectionism, and I just want to talk about it today. The other day, I was thinking about what topic I wanted to start a conversation around next on the podcast. And I, of course, was looking towards myself for inspiration. This is a lot of what I do on this podcast is sort of look inside and see what I've gone through or see what I'm currently going through and talk about it on the podcast because it's sort of cathartic. And I also know that there might be someone out there who struggles in the same ways that I do. And I hope to make them feel a little bit more seen and heard. As I was thinking about whatever topic I wanted to do next, I remembered that I am somewhat of a perfectionist. And even when it comes to this podcast, I catch myself having a lot of shame if things don't go exactly the way that I want them to go. And I do have this perfectionistic quality within me, and it's hindered me in a lot of ways of my life. If you have the perfectionistic bug, you will know that it is an uphill battle that you will never win, because there's always going to be something that you want to achieve, that you want to do, that you want to have in your life, and nothing will feel satisfying. I just want to talk about that today because when I was thinking about perfectionism, I was just kind of, I don't know, I was in my head, I was in my feels, and I was just looking at how I've grown in perfectionism, how it has hurt me, and how I'm wanting to move past it, but I just can't quite get there. When I was thinking about all of this, I get a lot of my ideas when I'm on a walk. I just put on my headphones and I listen to nothing, and I just think, I just kind of came up with a quote while I was on my walk, and ever since I first thought of it, it stuck with me. But it's this idea that there is no peace in perfection, but there is perfection and peace. And ever since I thought about it, I haven't really been able to let go of it. It's something that really just stabbed me in the gut, because I think that what people who are striving for perfection, people who are perfectionists, at the end of the day, all we really want to feel is a level of contentment, a level of peace and joy and pride. Because what holds us down, what holds perfectionists down, is shame and guilt and this idea that we are not enough, that you are not enough, that I am not enough. Perfectionism is an internal battle where we wear a mask, where we do all of these things to make ourselves believe that we are enough. And there is no peace in that. And today I just want to talk about the joy of imperfection, because you cannot find joy trying to find perfection. You cannot find joy in that. It is an uphill battle. It is hard and it is all consuming. But the moment that you let go of perfection, the moment that you allow yourself to be authentically you and to not care about admitting your mistakes and admitting that you're human and seeing who you are and loving yourself for it and detaching from this idea of perfection, that's the moment where you're going to get closer and closer and closer to inner peace. And I just want to talk about all of that today because it's been on my mind a lot. And I know that maybe there's someone out there who's struggling with this idea of perfectionism. And hopefully today it could give you a little bit of insight on what you are doing and how you might be hurting yourself and how to let go and to know that there is joy and peace out there for you and that you don't have to do anything to get it other than just accept yourself. So yes, perfectionism. If you are unaware of what this might mean, perfectionism looks like constantly striving to be flawless or to be perfect. If you are a perfectionist, chances are you are setting very high standards for yourself, maybe even sometimes unattainable goals or things that you have to do in your life in order for you to feel okay, in order for you to feel successful. You might be overly critical of yourself, having an all or nothing mentality where either it's the best or it's nothing. And this could be very, very damaging. And I personally know that I have done this. I set myself up for very high standards and very high expectations. And if I don't reach them, then it all counted for nothing. And even when I do reach my goals, I shrug them off because that's another quality of being a perfectionist is that when you reach your goals, when you reach your expectations, you could still be overly critical of your performance or of your achievements, just trying to find whatever it is that was wrong, anything that didn't go perfect, because you are striving for perfection and anything less is worth nothing. That is a part of the perfectionistic mentality. Perfectionism is a mask that we wear in order to protect ourselves from this idea that I am not enough. It's a way that we can defend ourselves and cope with these feelings that we have within us that we don't feel as though we're enough, or that we don't feel as though we matter, or we don't feel as though we are loved. We are only loved for the things that we do, the things that we achieve, or how we present ourselves to others. It's debilitating and it can make you feel very alone because you might not realize that people don't want that mask and that maybe subconsciously deep down you don't want to wear that mask anymore because it is so isolating and it can really just make you feel a lot of shame. Perfectionism is a mask that we wear. Some of the ways that perfectionism can sort of affect your life and your thinking are, yes, these high standards and this self-criticism that you might be experiencing, where you really are down and out about yourself of every little mistake, every little tweak that you need to make in order to be perfect. Also, a fear of failure. For me personally, I am so deeply afraid of failure, and it comes out in interesting ways. Or all or nothing thinking, as I mentioned before, where either it's perfect or it means nothing. Either it's great or it is bad. It's a very black and white way of thinking. And this is not a healthy way of thinking. All or nothing thinking is not beneficial to you in any sort of way, but perfectionism kind of tricks us into believing that life is this way and only letting us see things as good or bad without any wiggle room in between. And then there's also this idea of analysis paralysis. And if you are not aware with analysis paralysis, let me just tell you what it is, because you might know, or you might not even realize that maybe this is something you do, because I personally do it and I didn't realize that this was something I did until a few years ago when someone in my life lovingly pointed it out to me. But it's this idea that you overthink yourself, you overthink the situation or whatever you're going to do into stagnation, where you aren't able to make a decision, you aren't able to take action because you are overthinking yourself into paralysis. You are literally analyzing the situation so severely, so intricately that you don't do anything about it. And that you're just kind of sitting there thinking about it, not doing anything about it because you want it to be perfect, and it ends up just sort of passing you by. And if this is something that you can relate to, that would make me feel a lot better about myself. But I know that there is a lot of people out there that do experience analysis paralysis. I know people in my life who experience this phenomenon that we do to ourselves. It's a very weird thing where we're just thinking about something so in depth. It's like we're thinking about all of the ways that we can handle the situation or can handle whatever in the best way, that the situation ends up passing us by. Life ends up passing us by because we didn't take action, because we didn't let ourselves make a mistake, because we were worried about making a mistake. Because if we make a mistake, then like that's bad. Perfection is not a mistake. We do not make mistakes. When we're perfectionists, we analyze and we try to figure out what the best thing for us to do is so that there are no mistakes. And sometimes it leaves us in the dust, this analysis paralysis. So yeah, those are some aspects of perfectionism that maybe you're familiar with, maybe you're not familiar with, but those are just some of the things that I personally have noticed in my experience with perfectionism. Let's also talk about the impacts of perfectionism, because the impacts really, really suck. The impacts of perfectionism, this constant pressure that you put on yourself to be perfect, it can lead to a slew of issues in your life, especially burnout. If you are doing everything all the time in your power to make you the best person that you can be and the highest achiever that you can be, you might be running yourself thin and you might experience burnout. It might give you anxiety. It might put you in a state of depression. It might make you panic about certain things. Perfection is not good. It can really horribly impact your self-esteem as well, because think about it. If you think about how you are putting all of these things in your life to sort of give you self-esteem, to make you feel pride, and it's not coming from within, of course you are going to have low self-esteem. Of course this is going to be a battle that you're going to face, and I'm saying that because I've lived that, and at times and periods of my life, like I'm currently living that. It's a tough thing to admit that a lot of some of the ways that I feel good about myself and feel pride about myself are these ideas of perfection, are these ideas of, oh, like when I hit this achievement, like then I'll feel good about it. Then that means that I'm doing something right. You know, that's not a good way to base your self-esteem, but that is one of the lies that perfectionism tells us. With that being said, you might feel unsatisfied with your life or with your achievements, because your achievements are just the things that you do in order for you to feel okay. They don't give you a sense of actual pure satisfaction. And this is the difference between high achievers and perfectionists. On this side of perfectionists, you have people who are doing everything perfectly and trying to do everything in their ability to be the best so that they can feel a little happy. Whereas high achievers, they're able to celebrate all of their successes and they're able to look at their failures and really see them as learning lessons. Where perfectionists, it's kind of like you don't celebrate your achievements. You don't feel satisfied by the good things that you do, by the things that you are able to achieve. You're just kind of like, it doesn't really matter, on to the next. And that doesn't leave you feeling good. That's one of the other lies about perfectionism, where your achievements aren't achievements. They aren't successes. They're just things that you have to do in order to move on, in order to level up. I feel as though that difference that I'm saying makes sense, and hopefully it makes sense to you, because it makes sense to me. But that's the difference between high achievers and perfectionists, is this inability to really just celebrate yourself in a way. Not only can perfectionism affect just yourself, but it most definitely can affect the relationships that you have in your life. People probably want to celebrate you. They probably want you to see that you are good, that you're doing just fine, that you don't need to be the best. And it might be hard for the people in your life to look at you and to watch you while you are in this state of a perfectionistic lifestyle, of being a perfectionist. And this could lead to conflicts in relationships. And not only that, but maybe you are the type of person where you hold others to an impossibly high standard because you are a perfectionist. You demand perfection out of the other people in your life as well. And that is not fair. That is not fair to people, and that is not fair to you at all. And we will talk about that later on. But putting that pressure onto other people for them to be perfect all the time is very limiting. And it is not you being able to see other people as humans, and you aren't able to look at yourself as a human as well. You might not be able to see that you make mistakes and that they make mistakes, and that it's okay for you to make a mistake. It's okay for another person to make a mistake. And that could lead to a lot of conflict in your relationships if you are putting that pressure for other people in your life to be perfect. No matter if you're a perfectionist or not, no one is going to meet your expectations, especially if you put unrealistic expectations on others. And yeah, you might be critical or hold people up to high standards because that is what you do for yourself. And maybe you only want people in your life that do that. But why are you doing that? Why are you blocking out people? Why are you judging people? Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to hold other people to that high of a standard of being perfection? Because no one is perfect. That is a very hard thing for you to do for yourself, because you will constantly be disappointed throughout your life if you are putting people into impossible standards. Perfectionism protects us from people finding out that we aren't perfect, because if we're perfect to everyone all of the time, then no one has a reason to not love us, to not care for us, to not want the best for us. If we are perfect all the time for everybody, all of the time, why wouldn't they love us? It is a way that we protect ourselves from these feelings that we aren't enough, that we don't deserve love, that we don't matter. Perfectionism is just a way that you are trying to cope and trying to defend with these feelings that might be really holding you down. And if I am striking a nerve here, good, because this is something that I had to really open up my eyes to at one point in my life, and I'm still having to go back and relearn this. If not on the weekly, on the monthly, I don't even know, but I keep having to remind myself that perfectionism is just a way that I am trying to protect myself from these feelings of not being enough for people. And that's something that is strange to admit onto the internet, but I know that if you are dealing with this perfectionism, that this pressure to be perfect, this pressure to be flawless, that you intrinsically might be feeling this way. And maybe at some point in your life, you learned the underlying messages from whatever experiences you've had in life that you are not enough. And I could promise you now that you are. And hey, I know I'm just a voice on the internet. I'm just a face on a screen. But truly, deep down, I believe that every single person on this planet is enough. And I want you to believe that, because that's why I'm making this podcast. That's why I'm doing all of this, because I want people to know that they are enough and that they can be authentic and they can be vulnerable and they can still have connection with people, even if they aren't perfect. And with that being said, it's the perfect segue into this idea of growing out of perfectionism and into authenticity. Because when we are able to logically look at perfectionism and look at all of these things that I just told you about perfectionism, look at why are you feeling this way, the causes of why you're feeling this way, look at the aspects of perfectionism, look at the impact of it on your life. It is bringing you so much more pain than it is bringing you peace. And that's why I said that quote at the very beginning of this podcast today. There is no peace to be found in perfection, but there is perfection in peace. And we are going to go there. We are going to transition there today because you deserve to be authentically you and to be able to mess up and to be imperfect because you are human and humans are not perfect. And you deserve to just let yourself be human. You deserve to just let yourself be you and to let yourself be authentic because perfection and authenticity are on the two sides of this thing that I'm talking about today because they are very oppositional. This idea of being flawless and almost being ingenuine, because when you are being a perfectionist, when you think that you have to be flawless and perfect, chances are you aren't being genuine in your life. You are not being genuine to yourself about your wants and your needs and your desires. And you're just doing everything that you think you have to do in order to be okay, in order to be enough. You might not even be looking at yourself and realizing what you want out of life for you because you're trying to figure out how you are enough. It doesn't allow you to be authentically you. And it doesn't allow you to have genuine, authentic relationships because chances are you might be biting your tongue. Chances are you might be holding on to relationships that don't serve you because, you just want to be perfect to everyone all the time. You want to be perfect for yourself because if you let go of relationships that weren't genuine, if you let people in and really saw how you felt and who you were, then maybe they will also think that you're not enough. And I could promise you this right now, that you are enough. And the moment that you let yourself detach from this idea of perfection, the moment that you let yourself be authentically you and that you tap into just being genuinely you and being authentically you rather than being perfect, that's one step closer to having the inner peace that you probably desire so much. When trying to find perfection, you think that once you find it, everything will be okay and that you'll be enough. And those are the lies that we tell ourselves when we're in this perfectionistic mindset. I don't even know if perfectionistic is a word. I really hope it is because I've said it a lot of times today, but it's just the lies that we tell ourselves. And I want to transition now from talking about perfectionism to talking about the joy of being imperfect, to talking about how much light you can have in your life when you are authentic, when you let yourself make mistakes, when you find the joy in making mistakes, when you see that you can be yourself and that no one will hate you for it. When you can let yourself be genuine and let yourself slip up because you deserve that grace. You deserve to let yourself make mistakes and be okay within. With all of that being said, let's finally talk about authenticity because it is the opposite of perfection. It is this idea that we can be true to ourselves, that we can express genuinely who we are, not only to ourselves, but to other people in our life and to the world, that we can align ourselves with our values, our needs, our desires, what we wish for ourselves. We can align ourselves with that and not feel guilt about it because that's just who we are. When we are authentic, there is a wholeness that happens deep within. Authenticity is the glue that binds you together to make you feel whole because every aspect that you are, everything that you encompass, all of your mistakes, all of your memories, all of your pain, all of your strengths and your weaknesses all combine into one that you don't have to shove down and hide when you are authentically you. With perfectionism, you hide the things that don't make you perfect, and there is a disconnect, and you can feel like you are split in two. Whereas in authenticity, it is a oneness within you and also the world around you because you can see Luna is being authentically her right now. She's cleaning herself in the back, but you could see how being authentically you translates to everything that's around you, because then you could see how other people are authentically themselves and it can inspire you as well. With that being said, let's talk about some of the aspects of authenticity. And first off is this idea of self-awareness, having an understanding of your emotions, your values, your interests, and seeing them for what they are and letting yourself feel those things. And also honesty. Honesty is a big old thing with authenticity. It's kind of synonymous because it means that you are expressing genuinely who you are to yourself and to others and not hiding anything. You are being honest. You are not lying to yourself about this idea of perfection, and maybe you are finally able to admit your mistakes to other people and to share your flaws with others without feeling like the world is crumbling down. In authenticity, you share those things at face value and you say, this is who I am, and you can take it or you can leave it. And there's something beautiful about that. With that being said, there's also consistency within you. Who you are to yourself is who you are to others. With perfectionism, this might not be something that you might be used to. You might be used to putting on a face to others and having a face to yourself and having all of these different faces to all of these different people and different things, and even yourself. You can get lost in how many faces you might wear. Whereas with authenticity, it is just one, because it is just you, and you are able to be consistent when you are with yourself and when you are with others, no matter who they are in your life. And this is so freeing. Let me tell you, consistency, honesty, self-awareness, these are all things that are so freeing when it comes to authenticity. I touched on it earlier, but this idea of vulnerability, this idea of sharing your inner deepest workings with yourself and with other people and creating connection through vulnerability. It's beautiful what happens when you are truly vulnerable and when you let your guard down and when you let people in and you let them see how you might be damaged, because we all are, because we're human. And it's a very freeing experience, this aspect of authenticity and vulnerability, because it allows you to feel so connected within yourself and with others. The last aspect of authenticity that I want to talk about today is acceptance. I think acceptance is one of the toughest bits of being a perfectionist, because when you're a perfectionist, there's always this idea of, I think I'm a good person, but I can be better. Yeah, I think I have a nice body, but it could be better. Yeah, I think I have a good job, but it could be better. All of these yeah buts that sort of happen with perfectionism. When you are in a state of authenticity, those kind of vanish and they go away. You're just kind of left with knowing and accepting and understanding who you are and how you are valuable as a person, because that mask that we wear of, hey, I'm perfect, don't worry, like I am enough, when you are authentic, that mask isn't there. When we have acceptance of who we are in authenticity, it means that we believe that we are enough. And that can be a rather radical idea for some people if you are a perfectionist, because you really might not believe that you are enough. But in authenticity, you believe this statement that you are enough and that you matter and that you are loved and that there is nothing that you have to do in order to prove that to yourself or to anyone. You just accept yourself for who you are. And that could be something that is very challenging if you are a perfectionist, but you deserve it. You deserve it to be authentically you and to accept yourself wholly and fully, and to accept others wholly and fully as well, because there's a fear there when you're a perfectionist that people won't accept you for who you are. I personally have very much been a victim to it, and it's a beautiful part of authenticity that I just really want to note before we move on. When we're looking at the stark differences between authenticity and perfectionism, when you look at these two things side by side, when you hear me speak about these ideas, it can be clear as day to see how much pain perfectionism can bring and how much happiness authenticity brings as well. It is very interesting, but it's a lot easier said than lived or done. When we look at authenticity, we could see that it clearly states, I am enough, whereas perfectionism states, I am not enough. It's these two very different opposing ideas and sides that we can find ourselves kind of in a tug of war in between these two things, this idea of I am enough and this idea that I am not enough. Because when we are on the side of perfectionism, we can suppress who we are as people and not be genuinely ourselves because we want to keep up the flawless facade that we have in order to make people believe that we are enough, because deep down we don't think that we're enough. Or maybe we don't let ourselves make mistakes. We don't let ourselves admit to our mistakes because we don't want to admit the fact that we are human and that we slip up sometimes, because if we mess up, then who are we? Who am I if I am not perfect? That's what perfectionism tries to tell you. It is the whisper in your ear. Be perfect. Do not mess up. Do not admit, because if they see that, then they will not think that you are enough. That is what perfection is trying to whisper in your ear. Perfectionism, it relies so heavily on external validation for feelings of satisfaction within, whereas on authenticity, this idea that I am enough, that is internal validation at its finest. That is believing that you are enough, is this idea of authenticity, this idea that I don't need anyone else's validation. I have my own because I believe that I am enough. They are two very opposite sides of this I am enough, I am not enough battle. Perfectionism is a battle within. The constant pressure that you feel from yourself, and there might not even be any external pressures that you might be facing. Maybe all of this pressure is within, because I know for me, I've very much been an internally pressured person, and this can lead to a lot of anxiety, depression, low self-esteem. All of these things make you feel so much less connected from your authentic self. It's like a feedback loop. You just go down this sick cycle of worrying about if you are worthy, but you are. Perfectionism, it lies to you about your worth. When we think of inner peace and this idea of finding peace within ourselves, whenever that may be or however that may be, being a perfectionist makes that idea of inner peace seem impossible, but it is possible. And that's the lie that it tells us. When we look at perfectionism in this way that I have today, when we really just look at the facts and the aspects and the impacts and the way that it affects our feelings, you can clearly see how much of a burden perfection is holding over your life. And you could see how it's lying to you about your worth, about the things that you need to do in order to be okay. Whereas when you look at authenticity, you can see that there is so much peace to be found in being genuinely you, in being yourself and being connected with yourself and being okay with letting go of this idea of perfection. You deserve to embrace the fact that you are not perfect and that you are okay, and that you are worthy. You're one step closer to inner peace when you can see that you're just trying to figure it out. that you have used perfectionism as a tool to get you closer to feeling satisfied with yourself, to feeling like you are enough. Perfectionism has been a tool for you, just trying to figure out how you can find your worth, how you can be you, and how you could be happy and be at peace and feel worthy. It has been a tool for you, but maybe this episode has taught you that maybe it's time to let go. Maybe it is time to let go of this idea of perfection. And maybe it's time for you to embrace yourself fully and authentically. Perfectionism, it gives us this false belief that in order to be okay, in order to be loved, in order to be living a life worth living, that we have to be perfect. And that is just not the truth. You matter. No matter how good or bad you are, no matter how much success you have in life, no matter how many achievements you have achieved, I do not care. You matter. You do not have to do anything more to make yourself or to make others believe that. And I just want you to ask yourself a couple of questions in regards to perfectionism, because these are questions that I have had to ask in my own life. Are you the only person that you hold to this high of a standard in your life? And if you are, what makes you the exception? Why do you have to be the person that has to be perfect for everyone, for yourself, all of the time? Why are you the exception? Why don't you hold other people to those standards? What makes them different from you? What makes you different from them? Do you understand that the people in your life, the people that you love, that they are flawed and that you love them even though they are? So what makes you any different? Why can't they love you if you are flawed? Why can't they love you if you're flawed? Why can't they love you if you aren't perfect? If you love them despite those things? What makes you so different? Why do you have to disappoint yourself with this thinking? Because it's a disappointing way of thinking about yourself. And if you are holding other people to the high standards that you hold yourself to, why are you doing that? Why are you letting yourself be disappointed by the fact that no one is going to be perfect? You are not perfect. Other people are not perfect. Why are you disappointing yourself in that way? Why are you holding yourself in a position where you are constantly going to be disappointed by others, by yourself? Where is the peace to be found in this way of thinking? When does the chase towards perfection stop? Because it won't. It won't if you keep on living your life in this way. The chase will never stop. Hopefully you realize today, listening to this episode, that it stops with you. It stops with the conscious choice right now for you to detach from that idea of perfection, that you need to reject perfection and embrace authenticity and embrace these ideas of imperfection, because there is so much joy to be found in it. I challenge you to accept yourself as you are. I challenge you to accept others as they are. I challenge you to stop thinking the worst about yourself, and I challenge you to be authentically you. Once again, there is no peace to be found in perfection, but there is perfection in peace. Thank you guys so much for listening today. I hope that I changed your perspective on perfectionism a little bit today, because I don't know, once I realized that I wanted to talk about this, I felt the power in it. And if this is leaving you on a heavy note, I'm so sorry. Go take care of yourself today. Journal, go on a walk, talk to a friend, talk to a loved one, talk to your therapist, talk to someone about these ways that you might be battling perfectionism, because they could really hold you down. And just thank you for giving yourself this space and time to listen today, and hopefully you take the steps towards authenticity. With that being said, it is time for the question of the week. What is one high standard that you hold yourself to that you just can't seem to let go of? think about it, write about it, talk to someone who you love and trust about it. I will be back again next week with another episode. If you liked today's episode, please give it a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to my channel. You could also listen on Spotify. Follow on Instagram at tobeknown.co. Follow on TikTok at tobeknownco. All of the links are down below. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed today. And with all of that being said, stay true to you. Bye.